All right, good evening, everyone. This is the regular meeting of the Darien Parks and Recreation Commission, July 20th, 2022. Calling the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. First order of business is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which was June 15th, 2022. Does anybody have any comments on those minutes?
I do, page 3, second
Okay.
paragraph, the last line. I think B is left out, could be preserved.
And what would you, I'm sorry, what would you like it to say?
Shape could be preserved.
Oh, the word B is missing.
Yeah,
Yep.
correct. And
Thank
then
you.
also page 4, top of the page, second line, instead of at, should be as a parkland in the future.
Which paragraph was that?
Instead of at, it should be as.
I know, what paragraph was that, Mary?
The top, first, the top of the page, second
Okay.
line.
Gotcha.
Oh, yep, got it.
And Lori, I have Mary Louise, are you finished?
Yes.
Yes, okay, excellent. I have one other small comment on page 6, please, in paragraph C about pear tree. One's a typo about halfway down after QR code at different locations. I think it should just read different locations. And then we're putting posters at Weed Beach, so that should not be in there. It could say including Pear Tree Point Beach and Town Hall, but not Weed Beach.
Okay, others? No others before I have a few things as usual. Page 2. Susan, I need your help with this. I know it says, it's on the Eagle Scout project. And it talks about she's one of the founders of Troop 219, which is one of the first female scout groups in Darien. That jumped out at me. It's probably because I'm the former board chair of the Girl Scout Council, but there's lots of Girl Scout troops in town. So if there's a way we can
You can call it Scouts
clarify that
BSA.
language.
It could be referred to as Scouts BSA.
Scouts BSA, all right.
Mhm. Thank you.
So it'd be the first female Scouts BSA group or troop?
Troop is fine.
Okay, thank you. All right, sorry, I'm just a little sensitive on all the Girl Scouts who have been out there since 1912 or something like that. On page 3, the second paragraph on the gazebo, second to last sentence, I think we're missing oh, that's the one, never mind. That's what Mary Louise just gave us. We got that. Never mind. Page 5 and the fireworks event update, it says Anthony Gentile. Is that right? Is that his real name?
Yes.
Oh, it's not Ed.
No, Anthony.
Oh, okay.
Which paragraph are you on? I'm not.
On the fireworks update.
Oh, no, it's Anthony Gentile.
Okay. Is that Ed or is that a different person?
Different person.
Ah, got it. Okay. And then right below that where it says report from working group committees, committees has a typo in it. I think should be an E, 2 E's instead of IE.
Mm-hmm.
And then under that section of the invasives at the very end, we refer to Deepika and Juliet, which of course we all know who Deepika and Juliet are. They're somewhat infamous. But we probably should put a more formal reference, just, referencing that they're from the pollinator pathway. And Deepika Saxena and Juliet Kane. I just think we should tighten that up. And the next paragraph, I think Laura Mosher's last name is spelled incorrectly. I believe it's Mosher. And then page 7, under my report, second paragraph where it says, stated the Pear Tree Connecticut application. I think it would be clearer if it said stated that the application to Connecticut Deep regarding the Pear Tree parking lot and boat ramp improvements is progressing. That's all I have.
Lori, can you repeat that to Connecticut Deep, the improvements to the boat ramp and the parking lot?
I think to the, let's see, so stated that the
Application to Connecticut Deep.
application to CT Deep regarding the Pear Tree improvements to the Pear Tree parking lot and boat ramp
Okay.
is progressing.
Lori, could I just ask, I think there are a couple of folks who are not on mute and not speaking, and there's a lot of, at least on my end, feedback. So if anybody, if you're not speaking, maybe if people could all mute, that would help, I think.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's all I had. Does anybody else have any other proposed changes to the minutes? Okay. Again, I'm back to scanning faces, so give me a minute. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands go up. Okay, then I can take a motion from somebody to accept the minutes as updated. Susan? Second? Mary Louise, I think you're on mute, but I see you talking, so I'm going to take it that's Mary Louise. Okay, great, thank you. All right, and then Pam, we need to do the roll call. I'm a yes.
Pam, you're on mute.
mute.
I was following Kara's rules. So Amy,
Yes.
Kara,
Yes.
Kathy, Chris, Lori,
Yes. Yes.
and Sarah.
Yes.
Okay. Minutes are good to go. Thank you, everybody. And, I do want to mention that Tamara, I think, did these for the first time. Is that correct, Pam?
Yes.
And I think she
Yes.
she did a very nice job all for her first time. So we were spoiled by Jamie, but I thought these were really, good minutes with just some, minor clarifications and updates. So please thank her for us. I think she's going to be watching back the meetings and doing the minutes.
Exactly. And there'll be times when she'll come on, but not tonight.
Okay, but we really appreciate her picking up on this. I know it's nobody's favorite task. Okay, next on the agenda is public comment. Do we have anybody this evening who's going to be making public comment? I see Patty's hand. Okay, Patty.
Hi, thank you all. First, I want to say a big thank you to Pam Geary and her team for an amazing, amazing fireworks. It's the best I've ever seen in Darien, in Connecticut. I mean, with maybe the exception of the Statue of Liberty one when they redid it in New York City. It was really so well done. And personally, I love having it on a different weekend than the 4th of July when everybody else has it. I thought it made it really special. So well done to you and your staff. I wanted to say that. Number two,
Thank you.
Pam, I just wanted to give a personal shout out. Thank you. You are busy and you are understaffed and you've handled a lot. And I know with being involved in for the working groups for things, you keep us on task with the agenda. Everybody participates. Susan Daly, in her projects, Kara and her projects, they've been great, but you keep us on point with the agendas and, that everybody's there. And Mira Louise on evasives and Amy and stuff. So thank you. Just want to say that. And the third
you.
is I was not at the June meeting, so I did just want to give my feedback on the gazebo with all due respect. So I'm going to just quickly read some notes real quick. When we did our Parks and when I accompanied you all on the annual Parks and Rec Commission tour over the last few years, we've always talked about that roof, but it was never talked about as a full takeaway tear down. It was always talked about as let's just power wash it. Let's just fix that roof. And in my mind, that's really how it's always been. And so I personally have concerns, and I'm very thankful that there's a wonderful donor out there that wants to donate something to us in honor of their father. So I appreciate that, but I personally am not. It feels like an overreach to take down an existing structure that is in good shape, that really just hadn't been power washed in years or painted. And it used to be maintained, many, many years ago. When I say that, Jack Whitehead, for any of you guys who were on the RTM with me for years, that was his thing. He used to always paint it. And so since he's passed, I just don't know that it had the TLC and loving care of somebody who was so dedicated to it. So I would like to see the $15,000 that the RTM and the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance all voted on to repair the roof to go towards the repair of the roof. I personally would like to see it power washed first. And then look at the roof. And if we just need to replace some shingles, do that. And if not, then put the money towards a new roof. And I think there's one or two boards that are loose that need to be fixed, but otherwise I believe it's structurally sound. And I think they've had a variety of people out there looking at it. So that's my feedback on that. My feedback on the design is that I just feel like a rectangle is too big. That is a beloved structure there. And somebody said to me actually today, and I'm there every day and, walking and with the dogs and people are talking, and they had asked, somebody actually asked today what's going on with the gazebo, is that getting done? And I said, there's a proposal for a rectangle, and people really reacted to that. I don't think they want to see vinyl there. I don't think they want to see a rectangle. And even though it seems like it's only 4 feet, because it's not in that oval octagon shape, it really, really will change the look of the park. I think it'll block a lot of the view, not from sitting inside the structure, but when you pull into the park and you have that beautiful sweeping view from up by the, pickleball court, and you turn to the left and up by the soccer court. It's just so very pretty. We're going to be working on the invasives there and working on the pond in that area. And I just think with the new pollinator pathway, plants and trees, Susan knows because she was helping to plant some of those. It's the present gazebo is nicely nestled in there. There's a lot of charm. There's a lot of attachment by people to that. And I believe that we should just give it the TLC that it needs, and that the RTM voted on. And so the final thing in me doing research, since I wasn't at that June meeting, I kept trying to find out, when was it built? When did it go in? And I found out by researching, I finally found a New York Times digitized old article from December 5th, 1993. And I'm just going to read one paragraph from it. It said, it was a piece entitled Girl Scouts from Arts and Crafts to Issues. So there's a whole piece on all scouting in Connecticut. And then all of a sudden I came upon this and it said more than 400 girls in Darien troops organized a town-wide can and bottle recycling campaign that raised $12,000 to help build a new gazebo in Cherry Lawn Park. They are being honored as Organization of the Year by the town Chamber of Commerce, and now may organize a permanent recycling project. So again, I'm going to reiterate, why would we tear down a structure that is structurally sound that we can fix? And my goodness, I personally don't want to take down something that the Scouts have done that's in good shape. I don't think it's a good look. But thank you for your feedback and the work from the donor standpoint. But I think there's still opportunity for the donor to add value on this project, add value on the pond, et cetera. And that's the direction that I would recommend. So thank you for your time.
Lori, you're
Lori, you're on.
Sorry. Were we going to hear from the gardeners?
I thought we had one, but she emailed back and said she decided not to speak about it.
Okay. Okay, thanks. All right, is there anybody else? Jenny?
Hi there, thank you.
Hi.
Well, I was gonna speak, took my thunder. Patty, thank you for that. I was actually gonna echo from a finance and budget hat on. I know that we approved 15 grand for the roof, and I reviewed the minutes and I've been following it a little bit. For personal reasons and being at Cherry Lawn, I love the way it looks, and the fact that there's a history there with the Girl Scouts is even a more compelling reason to really rethink replacing it. And I was going back and looking at the capital plan and if how old the gazebo was and if it needed replacing. And I didn't see any compelling reason to replace it. And I know there's money to fix the roof. So I do appreciate a very generous donor wanting to make a contribution and something that is important to them. But the gazebo, it just seems like that is something that we can be repaired pretty, efficiently and inexpensively. And I, particularly in light of considering replacing it, given that this was already donated by a very reputable group, I would I request that you guys relook at that and see if there's another project that the family might be able to be interested in, because I think the gazebo is excellent where it is, and a bigger structure will absolutely sort of take over that back. It's already getting a little bit. I saw the new trees go in, which is great, and I just don't know how even a bigger structure would fit back there very well without encroaching on new trees. And I know that there's also a plan down the road to repair and restore the pond, which maybe that's something the family wants to be. I'll leave that up to Pam and that relationship there. But I pretty much, echo what Patty was saying. And from a finance and budget standpoint, I know the money was there, and I know that they've been kind of waiting to spend it to get a better plan. But I recommend that maybe we just look at the original plan of power washing it and cleaning it up. And that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jenny. Okay, so it sounds like we don't have any other public comment. Okay, so the next on the agenda was to discuss the organic field maintenance at Highland and Cherry Lawn. I did want to mention that when we implemented the program, the commission specifically asked for semi-annual update on how using the organics was working. We had calendared it for July, so that's why it's on the agenda. Sandy Rich, our head of maintenance, is going to join us, but not for about another 45 minutes. So we will move that back in the agenda, and I think we'll just move on to the discussion on the Cherry Lawn gazebo, since we've been talking about it anyway. Okay. Obviously, we've had a preamble through the public comment from Patty and Jenny. As you know, we have, through Pam, been discussing with this family a donation which would, as proposed, would be replace the existing gazebo with something larger and a more rectangular shape. That was presented back at the May meeting. Those, at the meeting, seemed favorably inclined, but since then there's been more discussion, additional work done on it. And, really, thinking back and looking at where we are, what really occurred to me in terms of how we got to, sort of the moment we're at, is that we may not have done a good job as a group really clarifying and codifying what our objectives are. Certainly through the standards of care in our park tours, we identified the gazebo as being in pretty sorry shape and in need of, attention. So I think to frame this discussion, and Amy and Mary Louise have put a presentation together they're going to share in a few minutes. I do think it's really important that we come together as a commission and really, identify what our priorities, here are for the space, the structure, how it might be used by residents now and in the future. So I just really wanted to set that framework in terms of us really thinking about, what is it we're really trying to accomplish, because I'm not sure we're all clear on that at this point. So I will frame it and open it up to some discussion, or we can look at what Amy and Mary Louise have presented and then use that as the launching pad for that discussion to make sure that we're really all on the same page in terms of our objectives.
I think that makes the most sense. You
Which, the
agree?
latter?
If we start with the presentation, PowerPoint.
Okay, let's go with that then.
Okay, so I have to make Amy the presenter, which I just have, and it's all up to you, Amy, at this point. Amy, you're on mute. Amy, you're on mute.
Understood.
You
Can
can't
you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Trying to get it in slideshow.
So I do think somebody needs to turn off their mic because I'm hearing a lot of reverb. Okay. So can everybody see my screen? Oh, you all turned off your mic.
Just thumbs up.
Yes, I think we can see. Can you put it into slideshow?
Yeah, you can make it a little bigger.
Do that. I don't know how to do. I don't know why it's not doing that. I'm putting I'm clicking on this little icon, Lori.
I think
Go to slideshow. Yeah, go to the top to slideshow, and it should give you an option to, when you go there, it should give you an option to put it in mode.
Now, Pam and I spent a little time with this. I'm not really sure why it's not. I don't know why.
I think you might do slideshow. If you hit slideshow and then the toggle's right there.
Click on slideshow right here.
Yep.
I just did.
The arrow down.
Yeah,
No.
that's what I'm getting. Do you know how to
Yeah.
switch this into slideshow quickly?
I
Or do you-
do.
Go to PowerPoint,
I am.
go to the PowerPoint menu.
Where's the menu?
Click on that right there,
This guy.
that icon.
Yeah, I know. Usually it just goes bigger.
Right, hit resume.
So I don't want to take up
Click on
too
the
much
menu.
time. Right here?
From the beginning. I don't know why it's not.
I don't know either. Okay, can you guys see this? Yes, Mary, obviously you can. Lori said you could. Okay, so I think we should just go with this, if that's okay, Lori? Can you see okay?
Yep.
Lori?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So as Lori indicated, there was some discussion associated with the Cherry Lawn Park gazebo, and Mary Louise and I got together and thought that we needed to do a deeper dive and look at some more options. So we did some research and we put together this presentation, and so we wanted to get your thoughts. I do want to say thank you to Lori for postponing the vote so that we could actually take the time to look at this carefully. So the presentation is I'm going to give you a quick overview. We're going to look at the option 1, which is the new proposed structure that that Pam has made. And we're going to talk a little bit about the design concerns that we have, which have been somewhat articulated by Patty and Jen. And then we're going to look at some alternative new structures, which we've done some research on. And then we're going to have a discussion about the restoration and preservation of the existing gazebo, and maybe we can come up with some solution, or we are coming up with some solutions and recommendations for your review. So the first point of discussion in option 1 is this new structure, the proposed structure, and a generous family has offered very nicely to donate up to $40,000 in memory of their father. And the donation would be made to replace the existing gazebo with a new 20 by 24 structure, which Pam proposed, and Pam proposed the building on the right to the commission, and the family has indicated that they like this structure and they're in agreement with it. The proposed building is estimated to cost $55K, and to meet this cost, the approved $15K, which has been earmarked for the existing gazebo roof repair, would be needed to be included. The Parks and Recs department would need to go before the Board of Selectmen for approval to use the $15K to help pay for the new structure, because it's already been earmarked for the roof. Just giving you those details. Okay, so here were our concerns. The design is not in keeping with the beauty and the stature of the original iconic gazebo that we all have come to know and love. There are no benches inside, and as many of you know who visit Cherry Lawn Park and visit this structure, children love to sit and stand on the benches and look out in the pond. Adults and caregivers like to rest there while the children play. It's a great spot for respite and small communities getting together and spending time. This new design does not have a ramp for strollers, and it needs to be elevated, of course. So with that in mind, Mary Louise and I took a look at some alternatives, and we looked at several, and these two bubbled up. The first one here is from Hay Needle. It's got this wonderful roof with a small little cupola. It's in cedar. It's unpainted, but it is this nice octagon shape, which is reminiscent of our very own gazebo. But we dismiss this because we really do like the look of the white painted gazebo. So then we looked at this this gazebo, which looked pretty lovely too. It's got this neat cupola and the roof line is really lovely, and it's got a little bit more trimmings and fanfare. But for our budget, it would need to be in vinyl. So we didn't love that idea either. So we then started to talk about kind of what we wanted to talk about more about the gazebo at large and sort of other concerns that might fold into this issue. So we started to think about the community who uses it, how it's used, et cetera. And anecdotally, both from people who are at Cherry Lawn Park and also just through discussion around town, the community is really quite attached to the size and the scale and the architectural details of the existing gazebo. They speak very fondly about it. And then from a sustainability standpoint, throwing away a usable structure just is not really environmentally friendly. And that, of course, feeds into the idea of preserving the structure. And it's in usable condition, and we'll get into that a bit more in a minute. The maintenance, repairs, and general maintenance, power washing and painting have not been kept up on this building. Historically, they have been done in large part by the Parks and Recs maintenance department. But I'll reference that in a little bit too. It has not been kept up with the washing and the painting since Jack Whitehead passed away. Patty, I think, referenced that as well. So taking a look at the current structure, it was built in 1993, almost 30 years ago. It's Victorian in style. It's actually very well crafted. It has this lovely bell tower roof. And inside, the picture doesn't really show it all that well, but there's 7 benches that go along the perimeter. It's 20 square feet. There's a ramp, as you see, which is easy for stroller access. As I mentioned, it's been historically power washed and painted by the maintenance crew, and it was done annually. That has fallen off, which we can infer has led to moss growing and this kind of maintenance issue up here. It is an iconic presence in the town and in particular in the park. Park users are very familiar with it. Visitors, neighbors, Darien citizens all recognize and have loved this gazebo for almost 3 decades. And as Patty mentioned, the Girl Scouts of Darien raised the funds and built the gazebo. I thought that was a really wonderful fact to know. So we gleaned these, that information, and then we thought it's probably a good idea to go out to the experts and see what they think about these design offerings and options, and specifically what they think about the gazebo itself right now. So we went to Timothy McDonald. Timothy is a renowned Architectural Digest. He's been an Arch Digest. He's also a former member of the Darien Architectural Review Board. He came out and visited with us, as well as Neil Houck, as many of you are familiar with Neil. He is an architect in town and has worked on a lot of wonderful projects. As mentioned, it is Victorian structure. It's pleasing in keeping with the park history and the environment. It's well sited. It allows views of the pond and is nestled amongst these trees. And it really brings you, the idea is that you can really walk into it and feel like it's a point to go visit. The environment kind of captures you and pulls you into the space. It's also in keeping with other circular structures in the park. There's a small gazebo in the playground, which offers some shade there. And there's also a Darien Nature Center circular building towards the back. And its purpose and usage is for a meeting place for picnics and learning. The Darien Nature Center uses it. People go in and actually study in there. I happened upon a wonderful young couple having a little romantic dinner there the other night. It's a nice place for contemplation and relaxation, shade, reading. So we got their feedback on the condition of it. And the gazebo is actually in pretty good shape. The roof rafters, and I'll flip to another picture. Here's the roof. Let me see if I can expand it for you. So the roof rafters are, well, that's not working very well, is it? Let's see, we'll go back. They're in good shape. These beams are good. The lath is good. The issue is the cedar shakes on top. So floating back to where we were, the sheathing of the lath I mentioned, the framing is in good shape right along here. The columns are solid and in good shape. The benches, all 7 benches are in good shape. And the floor inside the structure is in good shape, except for maybe 1 or 2 boards kind of at the entrance of this ramp that could get replaced. So the structural beams are good. Also, these railings around the outside and these railings here are all in good shape. And so what needs work? Well, as I mentioned, the cedar shingles need to be replaced. Cedar does have a lifespan. So it's not unusual that they would need to be reshingled up here with cedar shakes. The cedar shakes are really quite lovely. And we'd like to replace the ramp as well. It isn't dangerous. No one is going to fall through right now, but you can see, and I've got a better picture, you can see that it's got some boards that certainly need to be replaced, and we should really consider replacing the whole ramp. There also, these the posts here are in good shape. There are 4 of them, and the one right here has some problems at the base. You can't tell in this picture, but this kind of lists off, and it's because this base needs some work. The posts are actually in good shape, although we're missing maybe 4 to 6 of them. I didn't count. It may be 3 to 5. But I didn't count. And of course, if we power wash it, it's just going to look terrific. So getting back to this slide, you can see here that the boards, this is the ramp right here that we were talking about. So to replace, getting into the money, to replace the roof shingles, the experts suggested we replace them with cedar Alaskan yellow, which weathers into a beautiful gray. And that would likely cost, and this is for sure an estimate, but it would likely cost around $20K, and that would mostly be in labor. So again, these don't need to be replaced. The beams don't need to replace. The lath is in good condition. You can kind of see through here that there's some holes where it's rotted out, and those are where the shingles are. And then regarding the ramp and the base, they suggest that we replace it with Trex or iPay, which are sustainable woods, and that would likely cost about $10K. And then to power wash and paint the whole thing would cost about $15K. So I thought that sounded kind of high, and it was explained to me that there's a lot of intricacies associated with painting here because of their, it's all railings, so that takes a little while. But if Parks and Rec maintenance, or we could get that done by them or someone else to do that from a volunteer standpoint, that could help us with the $15K. So moving on. So for Plan A, we are requesting that after consideration by the Parks and Recs Commission, that Lori and Pam go and propose to the family that the donation be used to restore and preserve this existing and iconic gazebo. My understanding is that the father loved the park, and as such, he would certainly be familiar with the gazebo. And furthermore, we thought it would be really wonderful to offer the possibility of memorializing this gift by including a plaque over the gazebo entrance that reads, "Lovingly restored in the memory of," and this gentleman's name. If for some reason they do not want to donate the money to this restoration and preservation, we propose that we use the $15K earmarked originally to fix the roof, which was approved by Parks and Rec, and the capital budget by the Board of Selectmen was in the capital budget that the Board of Selectmen approved and approved by the RTM in May 2021. Also, as mentioned, we asked the maintenance department to help us with the power washing. And furthermore, we'd like to establish a detailed and ongoing and evergreen maintenance plan to restore and preserve this historic gift from the Girl Scouts. So thank you very much for your consideration. Pam, thank you very much for your time in presenting the option 1. And we hope that you will agree with us that restoring and preserving this iconic structure that is incredibly meaningful to the town is upheld. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Can we get us all back so we can see each other better?
Yeah.
There. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. I think I'd like to open it up to discussion with the members of the commission. Again, in keeping in thoughts, sort of, making sure we come to consensus on what our objectives are here. So I'll open it up.
Sure, I can, if you don't mind.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Chris.
Amy, thanks very much for that presentation. I think it's very detailed, and I think that the donation from the family is exceptional. I think it's something that we would love to keep, and at the same time, I have walked in Cherry Lawn where the proposed space would be. I do agree with the idea that keeping a 30-year structure would be great, and it's also amazing to hear that $55K could really restore this thing back to where it needs to be. In dealing with Scouts of America, I've been there with my kids through Darien Nature Center. They've used it. I think it's a beautiful structure. If there's a world where we can save it, that's great. And I just want to make sure the family knows that their gift could be reused or used to recycle something or make something improved that, as you said, their father definitely knew and saw. So when it comes to the way I look at this, I think it's a good structure, and if it only comes down to the improvements that you mentioned, and we could pull that off for $55K, I think it's a beautiful structure. I'd love to keep it.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Others?
I'm going to be relatively pithy and just say ditto. I think starting with Patty and Jenny and Amy and Mary Louise, your presentation was absolutely fabulous and detailed and really brought to light the structure that's there. And Chris, your comments as well. Everybody said it so well, so I'm not going to take extra airtime, but it landed well with me, and I agree wholeheartedly.
Kathy?
Hi, thank you for everyone for their thoughtful presentations. It was really well done. And very thoughtful in how to approach the family as well. I do want to ask Pam what she thinks how the family will respond. I am sensitive to the fact we pitched them one thing. This is a sensitive issue to them, why we can, of course, this is something we should vote on and make our own decisions. I just want to be sensitive to the concerns that they actually are expecting something different, and now we're going back and asking something different. I've been in that position, and it's not necessarily the easiest conversation you're going to have with them, Pam. So.
Thanks, Kathy. I did reach out to the family a few days ago, I mean, maybe on Friday, and let them know that there were some sensitive feelings regarding the original shape, and that I was asked to ask them whether or not they would consider or reconsider the original shape, and they got back to me very quickly and said no. They really liked the rectangle that they chose, and that was it. It was pretty quick, and they said thank you for all the work involved, but no, the family has decided they really like the rectangular.
So did you have the conversation with them about restoring the existing structure and its history at all, and its history to the town, or was it just really about the shape?
I did not. At the time, that wasn't the discussion. It was just about whether or not I would go back and have that conversation with it. It would reconsider the shape. So I did not go back, and I didn't have this type of discussion to rely on. So, you know, I mean, it is a delicate situation. I feel like I'm definitely in the middle of something very sensitive, because they came to the commission and they talked about wanting to replace it back in November, and we were all very excited about their donation. So it is a bit confusing.
Susan?
I wanted to thank everybody for working on this. I know this is a really tough situation to be in, especially dealing with donors and trying to get something done for our town. It's very important, but I thought about it, especially hearing the historical context, and then I was kind of going back and trying to figure out what we had done with the gazebo all these years since I've been on the commission for so long. And I couldn't find where we've done something recently to it that was major. I saw a couple of times that we tried to request funding in like the 15,000 to 19,000 amount, and I believe it wasn't given, or we didn't get approved for it. So that's obviously contributes to the situation we're in, where the roof is probably hasn't been really touched, except for I think we might have replaced some of the shingles. I think I have that in the back of my mind. And then the other thing I did find was that some history, in addition to it being built by the Scouts, is that the Cherry Lawn School used to be up in that location. And one of the things on one of the plaques is we talk about is the Cherry Lawn gazebo. And it looks like the gazebo they built. So in terms of historical context for that, there was a gazebo in that space, not exact space, but in that property that was in that same similar shape, it looked like. It was in the Darien Times, if anybody's gonna look at the article, but it's from January 2018. And it's on a bronze, it looks like bronze or some kind of metal embedded in the rock. So kind of thinking about the historical context of the street, that I think that I would like to see it remain, to see it renovated if possible. And if we need to go back and request money from our town, I'd prefer to do that than to change the structure to a different shape for that reason. To kind of keep the history, to keep the feel of it. And it has a lot of history that is very important to people in town. So, people that have raised money for it, people that have passed, people that went to school there, it sounds like many years ago. So that's my thought on that. And I'm sorry, Pam, for putting you through all that effort and not knowing this context. I mean, obviously, it sounds like Lori realized it too. We probably could have done more research before we said yes to something, and kind of let the donors, have made a big say in terms of the design aspect of it. That was, obviously something that I'm happy to own as part of the commission.
Thanks, Susan. Sarah.
Amy and Mary Louise, thank you so much for putting all this together. And Pam, thank you for being so patient with everyone. I know it's frustrating that we've gone around in circles on this for so many months. With that being said, I agree with everything that's in the presentation, and I hope that there's a way that perhaps we can engage in further dialogue with the family. Maybe, Amy and Mary Louise go with Pam and have a meeting with the family and explain all the historical context, and maybe that would change their minds. But I don't feel like we should just go ahead with it just because that's what they want to do. Unfortunately, we have to think about the town in general. So
Thanks, Sarah. Anybody we haven't heard from? Kathy, do we hear from you? We're having a moment.
I agree we should probably maintain the existing structure. I'm happy to help work with Pam and Mary Louise and Amy to try and talk to the family as well. I've been on the other side of it, so I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of these conversations, and I think we can help manage the conversation with them so they feel like we're hearing their needs as well. But it sounds like the right thing to do is to restore the existing structure and keep that historic part of the town.
Okay, thanks. So, to circle back to the beginning, the family specifically wants to make a contribution of some form to enhance Cherry Lawn. That's a correct statement, Pam? That was the original conversation. They approached the town. I think it was actually Alicia who referred them over to you. But it's very specific to Cherry Lawn. So I do think it's important that this gets messaged back to them, in the right way, and that we want to continue to work with them to enhance Cherry Lawn, but bring the commission's views. So, I would really frankly put it back on those of you who put, really the time and the effort and have the great passion around this to really work together to make that communication really on behalf of the commission, as opposed to Pam just having to go back to the family and say, well, the commission decided no. Yeah, yes.
there's a lot of. Can somebody mute? Can everybody mute? Because I'm having a hard time hearing.
I just wanted to mention that I don't know for a fact that it was Cherry Lawn specific. I know after conversation with them when I first met them that that was one of the projects offered up because we were already considering doing a roof on a structure that had been there for so long. And so I'm not certain. It's just that they really seem to like that idea of making that a nicer space and a little bit larger so more people could enjoy it around the skating area. So that's how that happened. So not quite certain about.
I mean, I seem to recall from when we met with them that they specifically talked about, being at Cherry Lawn with their dad as kids and him teaching people to skate. I mean, that's what I have in my head, but again, that was back in November, so I may go watch it back again. But
that is true. That's true. Oh. But they grew up in town, so I'm just saying that is a true memory. But it wasn't like they came to me and said, "What can we do to Cherry Lawn?" They didn't. They said they wanted to work with any project idea I might have had that they might be interested in.
Okay. Then it seems that the conversation would be to understand their interest in a renovation that could be dedicated, or then alternately work with them, but with commission members involved into other types of projects. If they say, no, that's just not really what we want to do. We want something that's really we created, which may be their interest. And I certainly, as Kathy said, you can respect that if they're just like, yeah, because they, I mean, I'm making this up, but they could say, well, if this was really the Girl Scouts, then people are always going to attribute to the Girl Scouts, and it's really not something, that we did to memorialize our father. So if they want to do something really that's unique and special, to them, then, I think we need, commission members working with them right up front to come up with what those alternatives, be, whether it's the structure that they like cited somewhere else in town, perhaps, or, something else. But I think that would be the way that we would need to go forward. Okay. Other thoughts or reactions to that?
I agree.
So, Lori, I think you're right on. And I would be happy to join whomever. And happy to share this presentation, happy to have discussions if anybody thinks that would help. So.
Yep. Okay.
I also do want to add a couple things to the presentation. And thank you, Amy and Mary Louise, for that. But also you referenced the 20 by 24 as not having any benches. Benches certainly could be designed inside that structure. And you also talked about no handicap accessible ramp. That's just a rendering. Of course, there would be an area where strollers would go right in, wheelchairs would go right in. So I'm just putting that out there as well.
So, yeah, we talked about that, and we understood that it didn't include benches. We basically just put what you presented to us right out of your minutes, and that what you presented didn't have benches and it didn't have a ramp. So we basically just lifted that, and we're under the impression that those would be add-ons. That is a good clarification, and I appreciate it. But that was we just took exactly what you had presented in the photograph.
Pam, one other thing, the structure that you proposed is level with the ground, and that is an area that tends to flood. And it's my understanding you'd have to raise that at least 6 inches off the ground to eliminate the possibility of flooding. So that's another issue.
Yeah, I was under the understanding that that's a flooding area.
But you also you never want to have something sitting on the ground. A house has to be 8 inches off the ground, and a structure like that would have to be at least 6 inches off the ground.
Well, there would be there's a cement platform that would be built there. Certainly it could be raised as well. So there's also sorts of things that could happen, but I just want to make sure everyone understands that as well.
All right, any more discussion? Well, it doesn't really sound like we need to move to a vote on this. I mean, I'm taking the consensus that people want to move forward with one way or the other preserving the existing structure. I mean, we could put that to a motion and vote on it, or we can just go with the sense of the meeting, because normally we'd be voting more to, accept, the proposed gift. Chris?
I would suggest at this point that we continue the discussion and not move forward with any vote.
Okay. And then we'll just reconnect and, assemble, the individuals that will be communicating with the family in due course, because I think we do need to do that fairly shortly. Okay. Is everybody in agreement?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I just
thanks.
want to reiterate, thank you for taking a pause and allowing us to carefully consider this. And we all appreciate each other's time. So thanks.
Thanks. Okay. And I do want to thank Pam because I know she has done a tremendous amount of work on this and a lot of research and homework, and I don't want that to get lost on top of her many, many other duties. I was really trying to take the opportunity to, we have to fight for every capital dollar we get and to take the opportunity for a donation to do something good for the community. So I really don't want that to get lost.
I just wanted to add that in terms of opportunities for the community to support what we're doing, we have other spaces that we need that support, like not just the benches, but I'm thinking about a place like Weed Beach where we're looking to redo parts of it with very little funding, and we're going to need. It would be great to have some shade structures there. So I just want us to keep in mind that there are other places that need the funding, and it's not just a repair. It's just we just need a new a new cover space for some of our areas. So I don't see it as this is the only thing that we could ask people, especially if there's a situation like this, not just them, but other people that may approach town, that we can do something like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but Pam, if you don't know that I was somehow under the impression they were really wedded to a project at Cherry Lawn. If you don't think that's the case, then that really does open up opportunities to look at, some kind of structure like this. Maybe you wouldn't go with the exact Victorian, but maybe you would elsewhere among our parks.
Well, I think they certainly were leaning toward Cherry Lawn. That's why when the gazebo was mentioned, it was pretty much a no-brainer for them because the father spent so much time there teaching ice skating lessons. So it was just a win-win in that respect.
Okay.
So we never really talked about any other area after we realized that was a special place for them. So.
Okay, thanks. All right, well, it sounds like we're ready to move on. It's not quite time for Sandy yet. I don't see that he's popped in.
Sandy is actually ready already. He just texted me and I could tell him to call in.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay, I just told him he can call in now.
Okay. Is he in call or be on go-to?
He doesn't have access to a laptop tonight.
Okay.
So he's calling in.
Okay.
Should be any moment now.
Okay.
I heard something.
I did hear something. I haven't seen a caller pop up though. All right, well, should we jump into the just update on Tilly Pond and then have him sit tight for a few minutes? Okay,
Sure.
and just hopefully hang on. Okay, let's do that. So there's been, discussions certainly about the Tilly Pond geese and the inability to use the dogs, or the dog company that we were using does not want to work for Darien anymore because of some, issues with neighbors and harassment and taking pictures that he thought would negatively impact his business. At this point, we really can't do anything because there are baby geese and you won't use dogs, so you really can't do anything while they can fly. We tried putting up the pinwheels, but within 24 hours, those all disappeared. So we've been a little bit, stumped on the best way to proceed. We did have, some discussion about fines and such. I researched as best I could, and I'm not a great legal researcher, to find anything in the town ordinances, regarding not being allowed to feed geese, and I could not find anything. The only reference I was able to find was at the state level that allows a community to apply to a certain state department, for a program, for a goose control program, which if approved then would allow us to impose a fine, if I understand it correctly, but I'll probably need some help understanding that either from, Kathy or town council or whatever. But as best I could tell, and again, I will not swear to being the best researcher on all of this, I could not find anything in our town rules, specific to being able to impose a fine. Generally, and the chief of police came back very quickly and basically, that was his question. Said, well, if you're going to ask our officers to go out and enforce something, I need to know what's the ordinance we're enforcing. Can you show it to me? And we couldn't. So that's pretty much where they left. So, could they be called if somebody's harassing somebody? Maybe, but that gets a little bit tricky. So we could certainly proceed down the route of trying, getting something more formal in place as one prong. That still means that we have to have enforcement. You can put, as we know, for instance, with the dogs and the fines, you can put the rules in place, but we have very limited enforcement resources. So whether we want to put a lot of effort into putting something into place, knowing that we're going to have difficulty enforcing it or not, I don't know. That's, I think, what's up for discussion at the moment. Pam, that's pretty much where we were, right?
Correct. And also want to, I've fielded many neighbor complaints, letting them know at this point, we share your frustration. We do not have a dog running company right now due to what has happened over the spring months. Our hands are tied because of the baby geese, as Laurie said, until they're able to fly. But recently what I did was reached out to a company, I believe they're in West Haven. They are going to be hired to power wash all the paths a couple times a week until we're ready. So this will help at least show that we're making an effort to keep the paths clean. They're going to start, they were supposed to start on today actually, but because it rained on Monday, when I went there today, it really wasn't needed. So I didn't want to spend all that money when, they were pretty clean. So they're going to start on Monday. By Monday, they should probably be pretty messy if there's no rain. And we'll do that a couple times a week until we hire another company. I do have a quote coming in from a company in New York. He also works here in Darien as well. So hopefully the quote will be quite competitive to Geese Relief. I have no indication that Geese Relief will want to come back to work at Valley Pond. Right now they've been running the geese at Highland and have been quite effective. So that's good. So that's the plan for now. And I think that the surrounding residents will be quite happy if they see that the paths are at least being cleaned.
I had a question, Lori. You said you did some research about the rules and regulations.
Mm-hmm.
And why can't we as a commission amend our rules to say that people can't feed geese on town property and wildlife in general?
I'm not sure we can't. I'm just telling you that in the state statutes, I found a reference. I think I sent it out to you guys. Forgive me if I didn't, but I thought I did. But I thought I found a state reference saying that a municipality needs to apply and get approval for a geese control program. So it might be different than saying not feed them, but it wasn't completely clear. So we can proceed, but I think we've got to continue to do our homework. And I'm just saying, when it comes to reading statute and all of that stuff and researching, it's just not my personal strong suit. It's just, I can kind of poke around, but it's just, I kind of got as far as, I know Adele, I think, was doing some looking too. She and I were kind of going back and forth trying to find things, and I see Adele's in there. But we were having trouble kind of, you know,
I just,
figuring out the path. I mean, we might have to just get town council involved and say, what are our options in terms of have him research what we can and can't do. Whether we just have the authority to just say you can't, you know, because I don't believe anywhere in our park rules we reference it now. So, but whether we can put in there with this other state statute, that's just what we need to understand.
I think town council would be a wise choice, truthfully.
Okay. Okay.
Happy to help, but town council is more expert in this area than we am. It's not where it is, as you probably know.
Right.
But I'm happy to help and read through the statute and tell you what I think.
Okay. On geese, and it will be specifically to a control program and also imposing fines for feeding. So we can do that, and I will do that, but just remember we can go to that effort, which is good to have, but our enforcement options aren't always particularly strong.
Lori, it's Patty. There's somewhere where I saw "Do not feed the geese" sign. So maybe it's not in Darien, and it was in another park that I was in, but I know I've seen those signs. So I will spend some time in the next 2 days researching it, and hopefully I can send you and Adele something, so that will help. The other thing that I wanted to say was it's the geese can fly. The ideal of the pinwheels that Kim Kiner suggested was a good idea. The issue was the geese were still too small. So if you go by Tilly Pond, you'll see there's 3 neighbors with pinwheels and like things across their front lawn, and it has helped as a deterrent. I'm going by there twice a day, in the morning and the evening, just to check, because those geese are all over and it is a wicked mess. So Pam, thank you for hiring this company to spray, because it really does need that. But there is also down the line, we can look at a program. If you hire someone to do geese relief, there's a specific time to do it. And it's just, we can't put down pinwheels until 10 weeks after they've been born, because they can't fly. That's the bottom line. After that, they can fly. So there may be alternatives that are less expensive than a so-called geese relief, but it's all kind of about the timing. So I just wanted to share that feedback, and I will find that "Do not feed the geese" sign somewhere. Thank you.
I can also tell you that if you put the pinwheels down before they're even nesting, that's the best thing to do. At the end of the winter, actually, as soon as the snow's off the ground and they start looking for the green grass, any sprigs of green grass that are coming up, that's when the geese find their nest. So we put our pinwheels out like end of March. And then you don't have the problem at all. Just as a FYI.
Yeah, no, I took a screenshot of a piece of this Connecticut statute. It's a bunch of numbers and letters, but yeah, it talks about any such municipality, homeowner association, or nonprofit landholding organization shall submit to the commissioner, this is Connecticut Deep, for the commissioner's review and approval, a plan that describes the extent and degree of the nuisance or ecological damage and the proposed method of taking. Such plan shall include prohibiting against feeding of such geese and requirements that landscaping in the area is managed, blah, blah, blah. So that's what I found. Kathy, maybe I'll shoot that along to you as a first stop.
Yeah.
Again, not saying that now, but, and then you can see the numbers and figure out how to do some more work on that. So.
We need to look at it. I think the reason I said that we should have enforcement is, I think from that is that we can get rid of the geese through the use of other means, through dogs and pinwheels, but you still have to prohibit them from people from feeding the geese, or they'll just come back again. So we have to do it all in tandem. How much we can enforce it, I don't know, but I don't think we can not prohibit it and still get rid of the geese and have a fulsome plan.
Right.
I agree, Kathy, and I've identified who that geese feeder is. And I think that Geese Feeder is the one that also has the pinwheels. So that should definitely be a conversation from the commission, I think, and from at some point the police. And then we're going to do this enforcement and do a fine. So I support that. Thank you.
Yeah, but what the police were saying is unless you can point something that says they legally can't feed them, there's nothing we can do. So Kathy, I shot that to you when you get a moment. I could be interpreting it wrong or whatever. You probably need to read the whole thing because it's just a screenshot of a certain section. But that's, as I said, Adele and I spent a little bit of time going back and forth, and that's kind of as much as we came up with that we need to probably get, legal guidance on what we can and can't do. Yes, Pam.
We do. I just want to clarify that there are signs at the park that say "Do not feed,"
but they may not have been.
No, I just want to clarify that it is up there.
Okay.
It just doesn't have a dollar sign attached to it.
Right.
Correct.
So I just also wanted to point out that not only is it messy, but it's also, there's a lot of neighbor contention there that I'm concerned about. And I go by there quite a bit on my walks. And there was an elderly woman who was actually whooshing them and trying to shepherd them across the street out of her yard. And there were a bunch of cars, and she's trying to get them out of the yard and into the pond so she could just get her car and go out of her. I mean, it's not just the poop in the park. There's a whole situation going on there with the neighbors' relations that I think are heightened and very concerning.
Yes, and another note is that I've understood from another neighbor that the pinwheels that I met with the neighbors that have those pinwheels on their lawn and they are not working. So maybe there are times where it shows that there's no geese there, but I understand from others that the pinwheels on their lawn are not working.
All right. Well, we clearly have more work to do, but it sounds like we have sort of consensus that we probably need to get legal counsel involved to understand what we can and can't do. Is it a simple update to our parks rules? Does it have to be more of a town ordinance, which is a lot, from what I understand, of getting an ordinance in place in town, that's a bit of a long slog. Whether we do in fact have to officially put a program in place with Connecticut Deep, et cetera. So I think what we've learned is, as usual, everything is a lot more complicated than we would like. But we will press on. All right, so is that all we have to say about geese this evening? I know we're going to talk about some other varmints later. I think we have other varmints on, or we can add other varmints to the agenda. Sandy, are you on?
He is on. He's caller one. Let me see.
Then maybe he doesn't realize he's on mute.
I am. Oh, yeah. I told him I put him on mute, but I'll tell him. Let's see. I don't know if I can unmute him. It's not giving me that. I don't know if he can unmute himself, and I can't seem to unmute him now. Let's see. It's not giving me an option. I think I'm going to have him recall in.
Okay, you gotta wait again then.
I'm sorry, but it's not giving me. Can you? Oh, he says he's not muted on his end, but he's muted here. Oh, wait, maybe it said excuse. No. Yeah, I just asked him to call back in because it's not giving me an option.
All right, well, why don't you give us a quick update on fireworks?
Yeah, I'll give you a quick update. I think Patty's excitement and her experience says it all, quite honestly. I mean, we were running around doing the grunt work to get it all set up and ready to go for everybody, but it was really incredible to hear the feedback. I mean, I too thought it was a great show, but I was also very worried about sound and worried about the choreograph of the music. And, so to hear those that were there just to enjoy it, that it was that spectacular is really great feedback. And one additional thing that we did do is we added a VIP section that was brand new. It really was a brainchild from our new recreation supervisor, Cassie. And after taking a look at the layout of the land, she was like, well, maybe we put a VIP section here, and we just went with it. And we put in high top tables, we put clusters of Adirondack chairs, we put clusters of tables and chairs all next to the press box. We put a beautiful spread of catered food, everything from desserts to buffalo wings to hummus and vegetables and crackers and cheese and grapes. And, so it went over very well. I think people were very appreciative of it. They were basically the sponsors that invited their families. Some of the sponsors didn't even come, but they gave their bracelets to family members that enjoyed it. And on top of that section, I had never been up there, but I will tell you the view of the fireworks from that section was spectacular. So I all these years I've been down on the fields and I thought it was spectacular down there, but I was very, very surprised at what an incredible view it was. And Lori, you were there, you can attest to your experience.
Yeah, it was, I was gonna say my comments later, the whole evening was flawless. Doug and I got there pretty early. We were able to walk around the grounds. The food trucks were lined up. Lots and lots of police presence, good directions in terms of parking and where to go. It was just, the music, the Darien Community Band played, the sound was very good. Them announcing the different songs that they were playing and the history of them. The show itself was spectacular. The synced music, Pam, your welcoming comments, the audio was excellent. It was flawless. Getting out was easy. You could just tell people were having a marvelous day. It was just so good. So good. So it was fantastic. Susan?
Are you officially running this from year to year? I mean, I remember at some point it was just you were doing it sometimes. Is this officially in your area now, Pam?
We were handed the show back over, I believe, in 2018. So once we got that new position, recreation supervisor, those that were coordinating it, which was Jamie Stevenson and Susan Marks and David Genovese, they were burnt out. So they handed it back over to Parks and Recreation, which apparently years and years ago, Parks and Rec used to do it. The only challenging part is that Dave Genovese really is done. This was his last hurrah in helping us get funding. And, he was very special and intricate in helping us. He raised just under $30,000. That's why we giddy up and got that VIP station going, because it was just, we couldn't have done it without it. But it is up to Parks and Rec right now to raise that money, which is going to be very challenging.
And the second about are we going to stay? I know we had a, but you're going to go back to.
I'm sorry, you're cutting out, Susan. I didn't hear you.
Oh, I think there's from somebody, but are we going to go back to July 4th? I mean, July 4th weekend or thereabouts? Not, I know there was a hiccup this year, but next year you're going to have it closer to the holiday, you think? Or
that really was not a hiccup. It was, we had the fireworks last year on July 22nd, and it was scheduled on July 15th. And because of rain twice, we went to the 22nd. But our original schedule was July 15th. This year, Jamie came back and said before she left, way back in February, maybe we should try for the weekend of July 4th, which was different. Yes, there was a hiccup in the sense that when she left, we then had to go out to bid, and most companies weren't available on July 4th weekend, of course. But I have gotten spectacular feedback from having it the mid-July rather than the busy July 4th weekend. We did just put out a fireworks survey today in our office, so we're anxious to get that feedback back about the date. But most people are really, really happy that it was a couple weeks out.
Okay, thank you.
Chris?
First, I'd like the meeting minutes to note that Pam and her team did a fantastic job. It was enjoyed by absolutely everyone. I don't think I can remember a better set of fireworks than this past one. I know that it's already been mentioned, but it's worth mentioning again. And if it does come to the purview of Parks and Rec, I would be completely open to having, a subcommittee on fireworks to help with fundraising and with planning. It's amazing to hear, Pam, that you're already asking about feedback about when to do them, because I don't know if the answer is July 4th or the weekend after or the weekend after. I do think it actually worked really well. We had so many more friends, you're correct, that were in town on the 15th rather than the 4th. And so, I mean, I'm more than a background in terms of fundraising. I'd be more than happy to help or chair any subcommittee on that and help out with Pam and the rest of the team. And let's get started now, because the other question I'd like to always ask is, if we're going to do a specific date, I know we've talked about this previously, is it worth us doing a 3 or a 5-year contract where we could save a little bit more money and guarantee dates that we know that the town wants, and it's something we can all plan against?
Yeah, that's fantastic, Chris. Thank you very much. I think that's a great idea. And we have already been talking about the next time we go to bid to make it a 2 to 3 year contract.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chris. And I think having this, the VIP section where the viewing was amazing, we could leverage that in the fundraising. Like if you donate whatever, what comes with it is you can bring 5 family members or 10 or guests or whatever, because that did work really, really nicely. And you could see there were whole families up there, multiple, you could see it was like 3 generations of family members, all there enjoying the fireworks together and stuff. It was really nice to see. Worked out super well. Okay. All right. So yay on that. Sandy, do we have you now? Are you there?
Yeah. Do you hear me?
Yes, we do. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for changing the agenda around for me. I'm sorry, Wednesdays are kind of tough for me, but I'm glad I could be on now.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. I know it's a little on the late side. I know you have taken this over from your predecessor, but the commission was interested on an annual basis and this time of year to get an update on the results of the organic field maintenance at both Highland, which technically isn't under our purview, but certainly we like to know about it, and Cherry Lawn, and what the results are of using the organics as opposed to the traditional methods that Jim used. I know it's kind of a tough year because it's been very dry and now very hot, and I think pretty much all grass is stressed.
Yeah.
So you'll have to let us know, but it's really just a chance to get updates on any results to date.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, first I'll start just by saying, just to make sure everyone knows, that it's really the organic fields. They consist of about 3 acres. The rest of our manicured athletic fields consist of about 10 acres, a little more than 10 acres. I mean, really, one of the tough things that's extremely noticeable now is Highland has no irrigation. It's the only soccer field that doesn't have any irrigation at all. So, I mean, right now it is completely burnt out. I'm hoping hopefully in like the next month or so, as we lose these hot temperatures, it bounces back. Everything else does have sprinklers, but like you said, sprinklers can't keep up or do the job of natural rainfall. But as far as the actual fertilizing and seeding on the organics fields, Casey is looking okay. Highland, it's kind of hard to tell now because everything is just browned out. I mean, there's still grass cover up there, which is good, and we still mow it twice a week, and you know, it still strikes real nice, and you know, it's usable. Really, as far as any challenges with, you know, using the organics, I don't know how in depth, you know, Jim has been, you know, with the committee about what actually goes into it. The two challenges for us is it is a lot more time consuming. Basically, just to kind of give you some numbers that I think will kind of illustrate it clearly, is for the 3 acres, which is Highland and KC Field at Cherry Lawn, for a spring feeding, it consists of 150 50-pound bags of fertilizer, compared to, for the spring feeding for the other 10 acres, it's roughly 40 50-pound bags. And obviously that's just a lot more manpower loading, you know, the hopper, loading the trucks, you know, using forklifts to put pallets of fertilizer and drive them up there. It's not impossible, it's doable, but it takes a long time. Just to fertilize those 2 fields takes pretty much, you know, almost the entire day, just from loading and, you know, get rid of the, you know, the waste bags. And we have to do it twice in the spring and twice in the fall, as opposed to with the unorganic fields. It's 1 shot in the spring and 1 shot in the fall, and we're good. The only other real noticeable difference is the cost associated with it. You know, the price per bag is relatively the same. It's just the difference is you need so many more bags. So it's quite expensive compared to, you know, the way we used to do it. Other than that, the only thing that we are not doing on those 2 fields as well is our spraying, our annual spraying. As of now, you know, KC Field still is looking pretty good. There's not too many weeds popping up. There's a few broadleafs that are starting to show through, but there's still good cover up there. Highland, there is a lot of clover, but right now you wouldn't be able to tell because, like everything else, it's completely stressed out and browned out from the lack of water. I mean, really, that's on my end. That's pretty much, I think, all I got for you. I mean, if anyone has any questions, I can do my best, you know, to answer them. I'm not exactly sure, you know, how much of what I've said maybe you already know, or you know, where everyone else is at with this. But if there's any other information that I can give you, you know, please feel free to ask.
Yes, Sandy, it's Lori. I think what we'd like to know is that when the commission made the decision to go forward with this, and Jim Flynn certainly expressed to us his reservations, I think is a fair statement about the, you know, increased manpower and the increased cost. The commission heard a lot of testimony from subject matter experts about the importance of using organic materials, children being lower to the ground, not exposing them to chemicals, et cetera. So we decided that we wanted to go forward at least on a test basis. And the other concern was that over years, organically maintained fields, the grass wouldn't be as thick, it wouldn't fight the weeds as much, and therefore the turf might be uneven, or there might be bare patches which could create a safety hazard for athletes. So one of the things we wanted to monitor in these first years, and why we have this sort of as a recurring item, was to really get a sense of, you know, with the use of the organics, are we seeing that field from a quality standpoint is comparable to the ones that you're treating in the traditional way?
Yeah, I mean, the fields that we're treating in the traditional way are definitely, I think, in better condition than the 2 fields that we are treating organically. There are many more weeds, you know, compared to the traditional fields popping up on Highland and KC. I mean, there's not a tremendous amount of wear or bare spots yet, but I still feel that it's kind of early for that. You know, I mean, especially KC, because KC has been treated with, you know, our pesticides and our synthetic fertilizer for basically since Jim Flynn started, which was about 13 years ago. So, you know, there is still some residual effect especially from the pesticide spray, the weed suppressant spray. So that I'd say, give it another couple of years and maybe it might not look as good as it does now. I think the fact that it has irrigation is helping. But with the organics, one of the things that we do differently is we dump a tremendous amount of seed on those 2 fields in hopes of kind of, outnumbering, the weed seed. So we the weed suppressant for the organics is more seed to try to choke out the weeds. And unfortunately, with a lot of heat and stress and not a lot of water, it makes the battle even harder. One of the things that would be nice to do is try to limit the amount of usage on those 2 fields, because really what tears them up and what'll bring out the bare spots and, cause mud and pitting and divots is, cleat traffic. So maybe going forward, that might be something that would help, basically keep it in our favor. But I mean, as of now, there is nothing significant yet. There's small signs of, weeds kind of taking over and, popping back where normally, they wouldn't be there. It'd be just a thick stand of grass. But as of now, I think it's still decent.
Great. I'd like to open it up to questions from other commissioners. Anybody have questions? Susan, hold on. Yep, Susan.
Sandy, thanks so much for jumping in in our meeting and talking about what you're doing with the fields. For the
No problem.
The materials that you put in the organic fields, can you talk about what that is?
What setting?
What kind of organic fertilizer you're using? Just out of curiosity.
I have just the general name of it right here. It's called Replenish 343 5G. I mean, I have more information at the office, but basically it's animal waste. It's mostly made up of, chicken manure and other animal waste.
Okay. And then you talked about seeding and things like that. Do you have a plan to, there's cool season grasses, right, that we have there? Do you have a plan to seed an area in the fall? Because that's when those are the most effectively grown, right?
We use a blend. The seed we use is a blend. It's Kentucky grass and rye. And basically what that does is the rye kind of pops up immediately. It germinates rapidly. The bluegrass is the more kind of sturdy, the more hardy grass that is able to withstand, field play, cleat damage and that such. But it takes a little longer to germinate. So the rye kind of pops up immediately and takes place while the Kentucky bluegrass takes its time to germinate. And then once the bluegrass germinates, it kind of pushes out the rye.
So basically you do that year round, you're saying? I mean, during the growing season?
Well, what we do with the organic field, we seed in the spring and the fall. Mm-hmm. Typically with our other fields that are treated with the synthetic fertilizer, we only seed in the fall. We typically don't seed in the spring, but we put a lot more seed out with the organic fields to try to combat, the weed seedlings and, try to choke them out.
Going back to Highland, I walk my dog there quite a bit. And that space is very dry and sunny, right? Not only does it not have irrigation, but it's very dry and sunny. So that's a huge challenge that you face. But I did notice that a lot of it's clover. And I guess my concern was, it obviously there's a lot of bees and stuff. What is the law? And with the kids playing soccer or whatever it might be that's passive there, what are any options in terms of kind of introducing? I mean, I guess you could seed and aerate and hope grass comes through, but once clover's there, is it always there? I mean, it's just that it looks like it's all clover when I looked at it on the sides from the pathways.
It is a lot of clover, and unfortunately, the only thing we can't aerate it now because we'll destroy the field. You typically aerating and is something that you normally do in September, early September at the earliest. You can't aerate when it's this hot out because you'll end up basically with just a bare dirt patch. But we are going to pound that field with seed again in the fall, and we just have to hope for, better weather, more rain. One of the things that, and I don't know if Pam has mentioned this, but we do have water up there, which we turned on last week. We don't have irrigation, obviously, but something that I'm planning on getting a price for is to have an irrigation system, installed up there to see what that would cost, and maybe that would be something that it would be something that would help us, but we have to see if that's something that is possible to do, based on the cost. But unfortunately, with the there right now, there's really not much we can do about it, unless we go back to spraying and taking care of the field the way we take care of our other non-organic fields.
But you would still need the irrigation no matter what, it sounds like.
Yes, if it was to remain, a playing field, it needs irrigation to be in its best condition.
Thank you.
Kathy?
Thanks again for joining the call so late on a Wednesday night. We really appreciate everything you're doing. Have you guys had a chance to reach out to some of the other towns around us to see how they're handling their organic fields as well? I know that everyone's struggling right now with our environmental climate issues, but it'd be good to know how they're handling the weeds as well, because we're not the only one who are facing these issues. Unfortunately, I have a son who plays soccer, and he played on a whole bunch of really beautiful grass fields down south recently, and they're all using the organic materials. It's a lot different down there because they have amazing irrigation, but they were using all organic materials. So I think there are things out there we can probably try and maybe help us as we go forward. It might be an expense issue, no question. Some of these materials that you need to get can be a little bit costly, but it'd be worth at least having a conversation about if you can find the time. I know you're super busy and understaffed.
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple, vendors that I meet with periodically. I'm actually meeting one next Wednesday who's going to walk the fields, and we're specifically going to look at Casey and Highland. And I always like to kind of pick his brain because he works with a lot of towns in the area and a lot of towns in Massachusetts, and he does deal with a little bit of this with other towns. So I mean, I especially am curious to see what he says about Highland, because it's definitely changed since the last time he was here, as far as with the drought and everything, and the clover. So I'm hoping to get some answers and some help with maybe things we can do differently in the fall, and the next following spring to kind of have it better prepared for this kind of weather we're having.
Thanks, appreciate your support.
Thank you. Any other questions for Sandy? It looks like we're good then. All right. Well, Sandy, thank you for calling in. We really appreciate it, and certainly all your efforts as you've moved into your new role since earlier in the year. We really appreciate it.
I have one that I wanted to say.
Okay.
I just want to say that having organic fields and having as much property as possible be organic in this environmental crisis that we're having, I think is a very important issue. And we as commissioners and parts of the Park and Rec group should be very forward thinking on this. We are working on our trees, we are working on our invasives, and this is all part and parcel of that momentum and concern. Thank you for your help in helping us do that.
Oh, anytime. We're doing everything we can to try to make this work. So the weather, we can't do anything about the weather, unfortunately, and it's kind of working against us now. But we're trying to do everything we can to ensure that this, these fields stay safe and people enjoy them. So.
Pam?
I just want to make mention that Sandy's alerting how much time it takes for the limited amount of staff that we have for just those 2 fields. So I hear what Amy's saying, that the point would be to move forward to get all of our fields organically done. But I think we don't have a big enough staff to do such a thing. And Sandy, would you agree with that? If we were to go all organic?
I would agree. If you were to take all of the fields and put them on the organic plan 1, for 3 acres to do organic for an entire year is roughly $30,000, give or take a few grand here and there. And that's just 3 acres. So you multiply that by 3, you're talking maybe, close to 100 grand. And then the time, I couldn't calculate the time, to be honest, just because you have to go back, time and time again to refertilize. But it would be a lot. There would have to be a lot of additional staff put on. This again, it's the money issue too. Maybe there are other ways of doing it, but that would be a question, and for someone a little more expert in this than I am. But right now we're able to just the 2 fields, but moving forward, all the fields, I don't know if we'd be able to handle.
Right, because set aside the money. I mean, the commission is going to approve whether or not they want to put the money forward, decision whether or not they want to fund it. But it is a big question as to whether or not our crew can handle it.
Our crew,
but that gets back to the budget, Pam, and whether you have to propose that we need either increased headcount or whether we need to outsource and have an outsourced run. But it really gets back to, the commission deciding that this is important, that we want to support the sustainability, put it in the budget and go make the case for it and look to get the community support to say, this is important to us as a community. So I don't want to be held back to saying our current staff can't handle this. I hear that. But if this is important to us as a town, then we have to say, these are the resources we need to do this.
Right. No, I agree. I'm just giving you that's another element we would have to think about during budget.
Yep. Okay. Anything else on this? So we can move along. We still have a bunch of stuff to cover. Okay. I think we're good, Sandy. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
have a good
Sandy.
night. All right. Let's do a hopefully crisp update from each of the working group committees. Playground. Who will be reporting?
I'll do it real quick. We met early in June and met on site at McGuan to look at the space and meet with the playground vendor. And it was a great meeting because a lot of our committee members that are the users of our parks were there. And one of the things we came up with is that we'd like to see more swings in that space, which is a positive. But we also have to figure out a way to add more real estate to allow that to happen. And we talked about adding, making it more of a rectangle and adding the space right by closer to the parking lot to make that a possibility. So we had a long discussion about that. The other thing we talked about was whether we wanted to do it as one structure for multi-age or 2 separate structures for different age groups. So there are obviously pluses or minuses to both, but we're getting feedback from our committee to see what would be good in that location. But tomorrow, I think we have another meeting with another playground vendor with other ideas too, and more ideas for equipment. So we're kind of fast tracking McGuan because of the surfacing there. So that's been our huge priority now. So that would be a quick, Pam, or I think Patty was at the meeting too, if you guys have anything quick to add.
Yeah, I'd just like to add too that at this point, because playground companies are 10 to 12 weeks out with ordering, that it gives us a good feeling that decisions have to be made so that we can order and hopefully get McGuan done by spring, summer 2023. It's too late at this point to think that we'd have something in the fall. So that would be the timeline there.
Thanks. Questions for Susan or Pam or this working group? No. Okay, then let's move on to invasives. Mary Louise, do you want to?
Yeah, we met June 16th, but weren't really able to say very much because we want to go forward with Chris Andrianis from Stony Brook Turf, but we were not able to pay him until July 1st. So we are meeting again tomorrow, and he is going to make a presentation as to what he intends to do for the quote that he's giving us and when he's going to start work. I just want to add one thing. I think before he starts working, we should make sure we take pictures of the area that he's going to address, so that again, we'll have a before and after to present next year as part of the budget process and so on. And I don't think we have that at the moment. We're also going to talk about the trees of heaven tomorrow, and when they're going to be removed, if and when. And Sandy's going to report on that. So it's really the time frame that's been holding us up here.
Mary Louise, I have pictures of area A, area B, and area C, and I have them from the winter, from the spring, and from current. So we will definitely be able to use that for going forward, and I think we should document it like that each year. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm just looking. I have not like 4, but I do have some pictures that I took when we went over there.
Okay.
Before everything had bloomed, so I think we can definitely cobble that together.
Okay.
Pam?
And just to clarify that Sandy will not be reporting on that. He's going to report to me, and I'll report to the committee tomorrow because he's off at 4 o'clock. He's off at 3. So I had a discussion with Mike's staff and Sandy today. They will discuss and give us a reality of how, there's 30 plus trees of heaven. How many can they absolutely try to tackle between the summer of 2022 and the end of the fall of 2022? So they'll try to gather those numbers. I'll report on that tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, Pam.
Yeah, I have noticed down at Weed Beach, people are using the trees of heaven for shade. I've seen, picnic tables, and people are definitely gathering underneath them. And that's really the only place, if you want to be on the beach, that there's, natural shade from trees. I've been really noticing it going, having this guilty feeling that we're taking them down. So I think we have to be aware of that in terms of, what we may want to do with tree play. There used to be beautiful trees all along Weed Beach, right in front of where the dunes are now, and they all got wiped out in a storm, and the replacements have never thrived there. So there's really nothing. Yes, Pam?
Well, luckily, I just received an email today from a congregational church wanting to see if they could donate trees. So that could be one area that we could discuss with the trees of heaven coming down. They want to donate at least 6 to 8, I believe. Okay, so we'll have to. I have not gotten in touch with him yet. I just read the email today, and then.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, and then you have to think about what's really going to work there, because they said those replacement trees, they never took off, and whether it's an irrigation. We do have irrigation at Weed, as I recall, don't we? Susan, didn't we put irrigation in when we did the Weed Beach project?
I think we did something, especially for the plantings. I just don't remember if they're like automatic sprinklers or anything, because that was a huge thing. Some of our plantings were dying in the parking lot. But I have to look that up.
I could have swore we put it in.
That's not irrigated. I don't believe it's irrigated. We have water there, but it's not irrigated.
It's not automatic. Yeah, it's not.
All right, so we're gonna have to think about that as we take any tree donations and, the timing and whatever, but that's great. Okay, good. Thanks, Mary Louise.
Okay.
Any questions on invasives? Otherwise, we'll move on to pear tree. Okay, Cara?
Hi, first I have to apologize. I have 3 dogs snoring at my feet. So if you have horrible background noise, it's on me this time. So this will be quick. As I think most people know, we pushed back the deployment date for the pear tree survey so that we weren't deploying right around the same time as the Great Island vote, which I think was going to just be confusing. So the survey will deploy tomorrow, so it's very exciting. I will forward to everybody on the commission a link so that everybody on the commission please fill out the survey, and I'd love people to forward it to your Darien friends and neighbors. The survey will be open till about August 5th, so probably will be the September commission meeting before we'll have results to share. And so a long time in coming, but I think it'll be really, really exciting to see what we learn.
Thank you, Cara. Thank you particularly for you've done a tremendous amount of work on this. Really great attention to detail, working with Noble House. Just the emails are always flying on it. And thank you very much for taking leadership on this. I know you've done just a ton of work.
My pleasure.
All righty, on Wee Beach.
So at our last meeting, about a little bit over a week ago, we had asked Pam to come back to us with some ideas about whether, since it doesn't seem we will have a partner in doing this project, if there was any way we can kind of phase it so that we could figure out how to start, because it's obviously a very big number that we need to do the project. So Pam took the plan that Dan Biggs put together and separated it out into A, B, and C. And A also had a plus part so that if there were any parts that she was like, these are nice to haves, but not critical, we put them in there. It became very obvious when we were talking about it that it was not going to work because the project was designed to be done together as one. And if we were kind of pursuing kind of part A, if we did part A and then do B and C, it might not integrate well. So we asked Pam to ask Dan if there was a way to kind of really focus on that short lane side and do, the scaling area to see what the possibilities are, because currently that area is being obviously tremendously underutilized. But we felt that the way the budget was trying to plan out, like we couldn't figure out from the way she had separated how the pieces were kind of fitting to do part A only. Does that make sense? So we asked her to talk to Dan Biggs to see how much it would cost to get the plan cleaned up, just to get kind of that space done in a bare bones manner so we could see what we're working with and possibly maybe be able to then look at other projects we could do. Maybe we could put a donated gazebo there. Maybe we can get our partner back, who knows? But just showing that there are such great possibilities on that side of the beach, that was the most, I think, to make it work, because we know that right now the town really probably doesn't have a huge appetite to give us, a multi-million-dollar check to finish this area. So we just want to get this area up and running as soon as possible. And with the idea that we get the space cleaned up and do it in that manner. Because the old project has things like plazas and bridges and different things. And we just weren't sure as a committee if we could do all of it, even in that area. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you agree, Pam, or Patty was on the call too.
Yeah, we basically, I broke it up into, from what I understood the committee was looking at, was part A was basically the gathering space at the short lane parcel, the extended beach, the fill-in of the wetlands. And that really showed, quite honestly, that it's still turned out to be like 1.2, and we still wanted to try to chisel it down to get it under $1 million. And then the second was the boardwalk only, and that was, I believe, something like $650,000. And then part C was like putting in all the pathways. So at this point, I'm going back to Dan. We're going to try to get a budget to see what he can do to redesign to be a little bit more of a bare bones option, and go from there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Other questions on that?
Lori, I'll just say I concur with what Susan and Pam said, and reiterate a talking point you say, Lori, all the time. We bought this property a long time ago. We don't want it to just sit there. The town doesn't have the appetite to spend a lot of money on it as it did prior to Great Island. But as a group, we said, let's focus on that area up front, far to the left. And there are things we can do. The other thing that I think is an important talking point is that, you know, Great Island's going to be amazing for so many reasons, but they're not a beach. That beach is teeny, teeny, tiny. We have a fabulous beach at Weed Beach, and this is the opportunity to expand that, and then do some creative things there as well. So I think that's an important talking point.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and Weed is very, very busy. I mean, the extensive due diligence I'm now doing on Weed Beach, it's busy during the week. I mean, there's people down there, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of campers down there from the different camp programs in town, and families, and again, multi-generational. It's hopping. It's really very, very busy. So I think the extent we can extend that and integrate it is something, you know, it's long overdue. So I think we really need to keep pressing ahead. So thank you. All right, Pam, we'll move into your director's report. You can just give the highlights, take questions. I know I had a couple questions, but why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, you know, I tried to, quite honestly, I do a quarterly report for the Board of Selectmen, you know, 4 times a year. So this was, I put a little bit more months. There's 3 months back up here, and just showing you a little bit about the beach concessions. You can obviously see that the difference between the gross revenues at Weed Beach is much, much higher than at Pear Tree. They're still operating, but they've lessened their hours to 4 to 7 during the week, and then open up more on the weekends at Pear Tree. So, you know, we're trying to keep the relationship good, and she's trying to hang in there at Pear Tree, but it has been very slow. I mentioned the ARPA funding and where I feel that the timelines would be, replacing park benches, replacing water fountains. I mentioned that the painting at Weed Beach bathhouse and paddle facility are done. It looks gorgeous. I mentioned the fact that we put in new trees and plantings at Tilly Pond and Cherry Lawn, and we tried to do some plantings at Pear Tree and Weed Beach. Little bit of a challenge there with no water, and the park monitors are trying to do that. We didn't do very well at Pear Tree. Those dried up, but we do have one big planter still that looks very healthy. So that's about all. I mean, Jim could also talk a little bit. He put his report in here about programming. It's been doing very well. Jim, I don't know if you want to just mention a little bit about what we put in there from your report.
Just a couple of things I'll mention. Pam talked about the ARPA funding for the paddle courts. I'm actually meeting with our paddle court company to discuss building that additional court. That would be next spring or early summer. In terms of our programming in during COVID in 2020 was the highest we've ever seen, and we're pretty much maintaining that. So we're very busy with programming and fielding calls and moving people around and dealing with issues that come up with programming. So that's definitely keeping me busy. It's been a challenge with lifeguards this year. This is the least amount of lifeguards we've had since I've been here. It's for a lot of different reasons. We don't have very many lifeguards. Hopefully folks that are going to the beach don't notice it. But we are maintaining a bare bones staff of lifeguards, and we're going to probably have a situation in a few weeks where a lot of them will go back to college, and we'll probably only be able to guard Weed Beach for I would say maybe the middle of August on. And we're doing our best. I'm actually hopefully hiring a couple new lifeguards next week. But it's been a difficult summer in terms of that. But other than that, you guys mentioned about irrigation at Weed Beach. There was actually irrigation around the bathhouse, but a lot of that was destroyed during Superstorm Sandy, so that has not been replaced. And that's pretty much all I have. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Susan?
Pam, you have a picture of the plantings at Tilly Pond, and you could kind of see from your picture that where that asphalt bluestone of the cut, it looks really pretty. I don't think it looks good, to be honest with you. I walked the other day and walked by it, and I had seen it during when we did the dedication for the Heritage Trail. I'm kind of surprised that the vendor would just leave it like broken bluestone and even a straight edge. It just looks really strange because that's like obviously new plantings are there, and it's a gathering spot for all these different events that we do at Tilly. It's very obvious to asphalt and then bluestone. Did you ever address that with the vendor? Because I know that I also read that email, the rocks being kind of tough by the back. And there's a lot of rough rock there too. There are rocks all along the pathways. You know that, right? Like when they did the work, they must have put the foundation and it's all over the lawn. I just thought it's just very.
Yeah, I'm not certain exactly why. I think they were just there was no straight line to deal with. And so, it looks odd. It looks a little odd like that. Absolutely. But it just wasn't a straight line to begin with. So I feel that they tried to do the best they could with incorporating the asphalt along that rigid line. But we certainly could take a look at maybe straightening it.
What they typically do is a saw and cut the bluestone so that it's a straight edge and it meets the asphalt in a line that's not, it's like broken bluestone meeting asphalt now. Honestly, it looks really bad for something that's so new to the town. And like I said, there's rocks along the asphalt pathways that they did too that were obviously over from when they were doing the work there. I don't know. I just request that they revisit that type of, those rocks and also that finish. I mean, it's honestly the most important part of the whole park. And it looks pretty like it was an afterthought that, they just spilled it in with some asphalt and then we're done. So.
I can have them come back and take a look.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Other questions or comments for Pam? No, just
I would add one thing, Lori, just that Cassandra Shull, our new recreation supervisor, I have to give her a pat on the back, boy. She came in on June 13th was her first day, and she just dove in. I mean, I had to turn my back to the fireworks for a little bit because I had to get the rest of my work done. And she did a fabulous job, and she jumped into our software, our brochure, planning the fireworks. I mean, by the end of 4 weeks, she felt like she'd been there 6 months. So, so she's out right now on medical leave for a little bit. But I have to give her kudos. Her and Anthony and Anthony, our seasonal, just did a tremendous amount of work for the fireworks event. So just a shout out to both of them.
Great, thanks. One question I had, Pam, you and I talked about this a few weeks ago down at the concession at Weed Beach. I was supposed to get a refrigerator, and I guess that hadn't come in. Is there any update on that?
Yep, it's installed.
It is installed now? Okay, when did that go in?
Yes. I believe it arrived on Sunday, which was very interesting because it was a Sunday, and they couldn't move it, so we had to wait until Monday where our guys came in and helped to install it. So it's been there since Monday.
Okay, all right, because I mean, definitely one of the things I've noticed is one of the reasons we were interested in this vendor is there was a real desire by the commission back a few years ago to have healthier options. In the last few years, they had really nice, prepared grab and go salads, and there were none this year. And when I asked about that, they said it was because they didn't have the refrigerator. So I'm hoping with that in that we can encourage Nikki to maybe get some healthier options back in, because frankly, there aren't any right now.
Well, that is very interesting because they have a refrigerator. It just wasn't one that was displayed. So I don't know why they wouldn't have offered. You don't understand what I mean. They had a big refrigerator in the back. It's just that.
But
So-
they're not even on the menu. So maybe we can circle back with her about that.
I will. She's actually going away for quite a long time, but I have another contact. I'll make sure that they try to get those going.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay. Any other questions on Pam's report? Okay. All right. I will move into mine, try to make it as quick as I possibly can. Talked about the fireworks. I don't need to talk about that. I did want to mention that due to Pam's efforts, we got off to a little bit of a bumpy start with the parks monitors this year, but she reached out to the individual who we had for the last few years, and he was interested in coming back. It's because he didn't work for the firm that was retained this year to provide our monitoring and ticket, gate services. But she was able to get him back, and he applied and was hired by the current provider, and he's back monitoring the parks, which I think is terrific, because he was very effective the last few years, really cares about the parks, provides Pam and I with good information on what's going on, et cetera. So thanks to Pam for being proactive, because we got some community feedback for some of the original monitors that they were not doing what they needed to be doing. So I wanted to mention that. The Coastal Commission met last week. A lot of the discussion was around the purchase of Great Island, with the focus really on sort of what I would call coastal related matters, the harbor, shell fishing, things that would really go on around the perimeter of the property. It was also mentioned at that meeting that Darayen's recreational shellfish beds were recently closed by the state of Connecticut Aquaculture Department due to results of water quality testing, which was very disappointing, probably due to septic issues, and members of the commission will be working with the state. I guess they don't test that frequently, so once they close it, they don't come back for a while, so then they stay closed. So they're going to try to work with them and find ways to get more frequent testing or whatever, or maybe tie closures to storm events so that we can get the recreational shellfish beds opened. At one point, we've been talking about doing a joint program this summer with Parks and Rec, sort of a learn to shellfish, where we could get, families or small groups out to the shellfish beds, get people to volunteer their boats. But obviously with the beds not open, that is on hold. We've had to deal with some unfortunate issues. We did receive a complaint about loud music that's being played at the basketball court, with some unsavory language in the lyrics, as well as some unsavory language by the basketball players. There was a request for us to put a, no playing loud music rule in place. So that may be something we're going to have to think about. I guess this has happened a few times. I don't know if those of you, I certainly noticed when I was over there a few Saturdays with my granddaughters, the courts were busy and being used, but I didn't observe that personally. So I wanted to mention that. And then we've had quite a bit of problems with partying at Weed Beach after hours. It's really gotten out of hand in terms of the excessive level of trash that's being left in the park. You can see that campfires are being started. And a few weeks ago, one of our benches, you know, the memorial benches, which are very, very heavy, ended up on the roof of the bathhouse. So Pam and I have been in touch with the police chief, and they are, I believe, have started, you know, we told them that, you know, beyond locking the gate at 10, they need to go back into the park beyond those hours and actually be doing some walking through into those remote areas. And I know Susan's pointed out the fact that those areas are sort of, you know, not used, and being left fallow is not helping, but it's become very problematic. So we've had to work with the police on that. I was also pleased to see that Pam made connections and had a good meeting with the group in town that it's called Thriving Youth, that they're trying to really delve into addressing, you know, problematic teen behaviors. They'd heard about this, met with Pam, wanted to learn about what's going on and see if there's ways that they can engage and really help, you know, help with this. But it is a problem. And I, you know, got home today, and, you know, on the corner of, you know, my street here, there's an, you know, big empty case of, you know, for beer and stuff. And, you know, I'm seeing it up and down Nearwater Lane that just, you know, the trash is getting tossed, and I've had it, you know, even tossed in my yard as well. So that's been a problem. So I wanted to mention that, but unfortunately, you know, we're having some, you know, difficult situations we're having to deal with in the parks. And Pam's had to jump on it. She's kept me in the loop. Fireworks were fantastic. The pear tree application to Connecticut Deep, I thought it was in. I understand that Monica signed it and the check was cut. There's one more signature we need to get from some state official, which we still don't have. But Dan Biggs said that he's going to go ahead and file the application without that. And if they come back and question it, they're going to say, look, like somebody from your own department didn't sign off timely. But that still isn't officially in even yet. See if there's anything else. The other thing is we need to start thinking about our fall parks tour. We're not going to be meeting in August, so I'll probably send out and float some dates. I know last year there was some discussion that we've tended to do it in late October, but it doesn't give us a lot of time to debrief before Pam's already well into her budget season. So we're going to have to think about whether we want to make that earlier. I had a conversation with the Board of Finance being invited to attend with us so they can really see firsthand what we're seeing, so we can avoid situations like we had with the, you know, the painting at the Weed Beach being cut out of the budget before it even got to them. So we're going to need to start thinking about those dates and when we might do it. I already know mid-October I've got weddings the 15th and the 22nd. So personally, those dates are not going to work for me, which I know makes it a little tricky, but we may want to see if people are willing and even available in more mid to late September to think about doing the fall parks tour. So start thinking about that, because I know it gets really busy. So that's it. And I did have a reach out from Carolyn Bain, who is on the advisory committee on sustainability in town. She's asked for information on our invasives working group. She sent us a list of questions that they want to use to support the town's application for recertification from Sustainable Connecticut. So I'll be responding to her questions in the next couple of days and getting that information back. And in fact, since we're meeting tomorrow with the invasives group, we can run through them if we can add it to the agenda, Pam, for new business or whatever, and just make sure we run and I get, kind of get the right answers for everybody. But I thought that was nice that they were aware of our work and want to include that in that effort. I think that is it. That is it.
I have two things.
Yes.
One, I wanted to recognize Susan Daly as being chosen as our resident recognition in our brochure for the fall winter. So we're super excited about that. Well deserved for all the time she spent on this commission and all the work that she's done. So we are so happy to recognize her. And secondly, we always want to do a picture of our commission for the brochure, but because we're not meeting in August and because we need the picture sooner, I thought it would be kind of neat if I took a picture of all of us on here because this is how we're meeting, and that would be kind of fun to put in the brochure. So if you don't mind, I'm going to take one now.
Well, and everybody's got to get their camera on. Sarah's not on camera.
Sarah, will you come on?
I'm on. But I was in my family room. Sorry. I was getting away from my dogs.
I think this would be fun. Ready?
Wait a minute, we don't have Sarah's face though. Hold on.
Sarah.
Oh, hold on.
There you are.
Sorry. I was escaping.
I can't hear.
Damn, the people are gonna see my messy office.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Best we could do.
Yes, we could do.
And it's the sign of the times.
Okay. So that's all I had. Now, Pam, I know it's very late, but there have been
And
discussions that
take
we
a
might need to
screenshot
go into
without
new business
your
to
camera.
talk about Cherry Lawn and is that not happening tonight, or Mary Louise?
Well, I saw that Dorothy was on earlier, but I think the whole indication was we thought we were going to move that new business up, but then there was no public comment. So yes, we've had some issues. Apparently the community garden has been having some issues with rodents, mice, woodchucks, I think woodchucks, something like that. But anyway, but apparently the person who called to complain has now had a good conversation with Dorothy and decided she didn't want to come on. And so it may be resolved, but the problem is I think the commission should also weigh in on the fact that some had talked about pesticides, and the woman that I had talked to was upset about traps, that a bird had been trapped. And so anyway, I thought it was going to be much bigger of a discussion with residents coming in today, but it's not. So I really can't speak to it other than Dorothy coming and saying she wanted the commission to vote and approve the ability to get rid of the rodents. But nobody spoke, so I'm not sure what to do with that right now.
Mary Louise, you're on mute. About anything?
I saw the email from the gardeners, but they just identified the fact that there is a real problem and they want to solve it. It's primarily voles that are kind of out of control, and they're eating the tomatoes. And obviously, it's tomato season, and people are getting very upset. There was no discussion regarding how to do this. What we've used in the past is basically traps. We have not used any kind of poison as such. And that has worked up to this point. So I would be in favor of doing that rather than doing anything more than that.
I was told from the woman that was upset about it all that it was told to all the gardeners that each one of them would handle it on their own, so that there was no. That's what I was told.
All right.
That's why she was upset, was that they were given the opportunity to do whatever they felt was necessary for their garden. So whether that's true or not for the whole thing, I don't know.
I do not think that's true.
So I have a very large vegetable garden. I've got a couple of thoughts here. First off, it's a really bad idea for anyone to use pesticides because it will affect other people's gardens. So I think that's a real no-no. And as you all know, I'm anti-pesticides anyway. Voles are super duper tough. I haven't tried the traps, and I've got little bites out of my tomatoes too. I frankly cut the bites out and we have them for dinner. So just saying, we're working together. But you can also plant something called monk's head, I believe, and you can get it at Gilberte's. And the voles think that it is poisonous, and I think it is poisonous, and that's supposed
actually, Amy, it's the second most poisonous plant on the planet. Okay. Monk's head. Yeah. It's a beautiful plant. It's tall and purple, and it blooms in October, and it's really gorgeous. The part you have to wash your hands after you touch it. The part that's really bad are the bulbous roots.
The roots.
And you can kill people. I mean, literally kill people. Agatha Christie's used it in a
I
couple of her
remember
books.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that as I read all the Agatha Christie's. Yeah, so because the voles burrow under,
That's right.
yeah. So yeah, no, chipmunks and voles, everything. I have dug way down 12 inches and put in a tight mesh. But they find a way. They study it
Sure.
very, very carefully for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours to get in.
Yeah, that's what we did, is we went down 12 inches with tight mesh, and we have very fine wire. But anyway, we don't need to get in a big gardening discussion here because
No,
it's late.
we do
But
not.
it sounds like we don't have an ask on the table that we thought we would have to add this evening.
Yeah, well, I would be very careful about those pesticides, Mary Louise.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely
I
not.
agree. I agree totally.
Okay, Susan, did you have a comment on the gardens?
Oh, no, you wanted me to talk about on the new business, Pace Flaherty's free library. Adding it to Pear Tree. You wanted me to talk to the commission
Yes.
about it real quick.
Yes, quickly.
Even though we approved his project, he's come back. He was supposed to put his second free library at Darien Book Aid, but they've decided not to locate it there. So now he has another free library and wanted to see if he could, I think Pam had suggested Pear Tree would be a great space for it. So I wanted to put it before the commission because, we talk to each other. Quick thoughts, if what everybody thinks about that idea. I mean, it was pretty successful at Weed Beach, we know, because people have told us that they like it there. I mean, we're obviously not going to have as much traffic, but the fact that he's built this pretty nice free library and we can use it, put it in our other beach. What do you think? Especially Kara, I guess, since you're the head of the Pear Tree Committee, if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I've also volunteered at Darien Book Aid for a while, so I loved his project. I love the idea and concept. I was just going through where it would go. I know it doesn't need weather protection, but I'm sure there's a place for it. I think it's a lovely idea. Okay.
Yeah, we want to make sure they stay stocked. I know there were some volunteers who I think Laura Mosier was assigned to keep Weed Beach stocked, just because early on it got empty pretty quickly, which I know is a good sign of success, but that's the only issue. We have to make sure that they do keep books in them.
We did exact that promise this time. I have it in writing.
Okay.
And I asked him to ask Book Aid about this because of what happened at Weed Beach, that we weren't going to take something and have to sit there and look at something empty or disappointed people. So he said to talk to them, and they are committed to doing that.
Okay. And hopefully, Joe, I know I put a bunch of books in, so.
Thank you.
Okay, then I think that's all we have, right?
It's okay then. I could tell him he could put it. Well, Pam and I will look at locations in Kara. I could send you a picture, and we'll get some ideas about what's the best place for it at Pear Tree then.
Okay.
Okay.
So everybody good with that?
Mm-hmm.
Nods? Yep. Thumbs, nods, yep.
Thank you.
Okay. I think then we can take a motion to adjourn from Amy and Kathy. Okay, I'm a definite yes.
Susan?
Mary Louise?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes, please.
Chris?
Yes, indeed.
Lori?
The only thing I want to one last thing I want to add. Let the record show, I saved a snapping turtle that ran up West Avenue about 1,000 yards. It was in between Leroy and Bailey. And I pulled over, all other people pulled over. Cops came. I happen to have heavy duty work gloves. Cops didn't want to pick it up. I picked it up, threw it back in the squad car, got a ride to Philly Pond, and then put it back in the pond. So that was just for the record.
Cool.
Wait, what was it that you saved? Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Snapping turtle. It was
Snapping turtle. Oh, cool.
Bigger than a basketball. Huge.
Wow.
Thank you for
They are
that.
very dangerous, Chris.
He was mad as could be. I mean, he was coming at me in all ways. And the cops had said they'd actually dealt with it before, and it's even bigger when I'm already in there. But I got him back in.
Well,
You know what,
the
Chris?
other thing about that is that it might help with the geese issue.
Fingers crossed.
You can be our new
Maybe we
animal
just put
control
all of the
officer.
snapping turtles into Tilly Pond and take care of the geese issue.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Lori-
Okay, everybody, I think we're
And then
done.
Sarah.
Remember, we're not going to have an August meeting. So August, we're going to take a bye. Everybody's been working super hard. And so I hope everybody gets.
I didn't get a vote from Sarah.
Oh, Sarah.
I'm good.
Yep,
Okay, good.
All right, so our next official meeting is in September, but I'll be reaching out in terms of trying to think about starting to pin down a date for the parks tour.
Okay.
Okay? All right, everybody, have a great August.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.